All right, Brendan, I gotta ask this question, man. How is it different from playing the violin and writing a book, man?
Hmm.
What's the difference there?
I think the main difference is, with playing an instrument, like if I'm playing a piece of music, it's really easy to just go back and fix something. And, I can hear it on the spot and it's immediately correctable. Whereas writing, I have to write the whole thing and then I go back and read it and say, what did I just write? This is some trash. So I have to go back and do a lot of editing, much, much, much more in the editing process. I can edit myself on the fly when I'm playing.
Yeah, the editing process to me is like the hardest process. I'm in the process of writing a book
Mhm.
on mentoring, and it is. If somebody would have told me that the editing process, and I do this every day, but if the editing process would be as tough as it is, I probably would have said, "I think you're lying." Then you realize with a book, you can't go back and change it. Like
Right,
you're stuck. If that
right.
makes sense. Now you said I heard you. I've seen a couple of your interviews and I feel like I've stalked you a little bit to where we're friends. If that makes sense, Brendan. I have to realize on interviews, man, we're not, we're going to know each other, but I've done way more research about this person than probably what I should have. But you said a number of times that music saved your life, man. Can you
100%.
explain that?
Absolutely. When I was 9 years old, I started playing violin in a public school music program. And when I was really, really into it, it gave me focus. It gave me something to do. And when my friends would, we got to the age where you can run the streets a little bit, like my friends would, that's what they would do primarily, just run the streets, breaking into people's houses. And unfortunately, some of them are in prison and dead right now. And I would have been right there with them had I not had my violin, and I was, when they
Wow.
were breaking into a home, I was at a rehearsal or I was practicing or I was on a trip, something to do with music. So it kept me out of trouble and it really did give me focus. It saved me.
Man, I was going back over your life. I had to realize that. I mean, now when kids look like us when they pick up the violin. It's still unusual, still, but I had to go back and think to myself when you picked it up, man. Not to date you here. I mean, your age here. But when you
Yeah, I
picked it
think the
up,
gray gives it away, but yeah.
yeah, when you picked it up, it was like a bigger deal, man.
Yeah.
How did you overcome the stereotype of people who may have thought, okay, what's this black kid playing with his violin? Man, I cannot even imagine that.
Yeah, and it was in the early 80s. Early 80s, yes, very early 80s. And it's totally okay to say that I think a lot of those stereotypes still do exist.
Yeah,
It's gotten better, but yeah, it was right. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? You get called every name in the book. People tell you that you're not going to be able to do it. You're not any good. Why are you doing that's for white people? It's just, yeah, you're wasting your time.
yeah.
But fortunately, I had people around me that saw that I loved it and that I had a bit of an affinity for it. So, that was a motivating factor. Plus, I mean, I just loved it. I loved it so much. It was exciting and new, and just I was pretty good at it. So it was awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't care what those people were saying. I stuck to it.
And that's the thing I think I've been impressed with about you the most is that you seem to overcome what's going on around you, man. As I read a little bit of your work, done seen the interviews, how do you navigate around the atmosphere, the environment, the culture? How have you done that so well, Brendan?
Well, I appreciate you saying that I've done it well. I do. Every day is a
Oh,
struggle. But I am an optimist. I am an eternal optimist. And I'm not ashamed to say that my faith has gotten me through most everything, every situation that I've run across. And there have been plenty of them. And there are days that you just want to quit. You just want to give up. I mean, not only just in music or playing violin, just every day just gets to be too much. I got really, really sick a few years back, and I was like 12 hours from dying. And the struggle to recover I mean, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to endure. And even post recovery, you have to just start from scratch. I couldn't work, so I had to find a new career path, and just literally start from nothing. And it was hard, and my faith got me through. I've always been a spiritual person, church every Sunday since I was a kid, all the way up through college. So I have a very strong belief system.
How has your faith gotten you through to where you're at now, man? You go back and look at when you were sick to where you're at today. I would imagine that was a turning point that probably got you into this, probably looking
Oh yeah.
back, man.
It was definitely part of it. It was, if I had not had my faith, I know I would not be here. Every day I prayed, daily, hourly. It's
Mm.
like, Lord, if you spared me for a reason. I could have been dead. I should have been dead. Just a little bit of a backstory. I had some crazy heart issue and blood pressure, and you know organ failure, and I was literally in the ICU. They're trying to keep me alive, and yeah, it was faith. It was blind faith every day. It's like, Lord, just stay with me, and He did, and here I am right now. So I know that I have more to do. I have more people to come in contact with and to affect somehow. So it's all faith, 100%. So for those of you that don't believe, hey, you know what? You're missing out.
Yeah, I would say the same thing too, man. I look
Yeah.
back at my hardest moments, and those were turning points. I mean, until whatever the next thing was, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. It was a setup
Oh yeah.
for definitely something. The writing process of this book, man. What was that like? Like, when did you know that you had to do this? That you
Mhm.
knew, man, I've got to sit down and write this.
Wow, that's a great question. One of my friends back in college, apparently I said to him, we were in a practice room, we was listening to something, and I said, I'm going to write a story about my life. And that was like, 35 years ago.
Mm,
And he texted me not too long ago and said, Brendan, do you remember when you said you were going to write a story about your life? I can't believe you actually did it. I've been carrying these stories around since I was 9 years old, since I started on violin, and it just felt like 2020 was the right time. Just everything was going bananas, and with it between the pandemic and especially when the situation with George Floyd happened,
yeah,
I really felt like the time was right for people to receive stories like this, and to be, actually not just hear them, but be
receive them.
receptive to them. Yeah, absolutely. And this is the right time, and Violin Conspiracy was born.
Now, I'm told, and I would say this is somewhat true, the writing process, I always laugh because I always say to myself, writing a book is like a group project that only one person gets the credit for. But the rest of the group definitely pull the greater weight, if that makes sense. Of the project.
That sounds about right.
So that's number one. But number two, it's also a very lonely process at times, man.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
when you were going through the writing of the book, and you're going through your life, although you're putting characters to it, obviously, smart move by the way. When you were going through the writing of your life, man, were there those moments that you just thought, wow, like what could have happened, what could have been? Were there some lonely moments in it?
Some very lonely moments, very scary moments, and I mean, I did a ton of reflection after everything had gotten out. There were certain scenes that I wrote, and afterwards, I would almost be in tears because I'd forgotten. Well, not necessarily forgotten, but just I was reminded of how painful some of those situations were, and what could have been, and had I only done this instead of this, would things have been different, and how would things have turned out had I acted differently? Would it have turned out for the better, or would it have been just tragic? I could have turned into a very bitter person, and I think it would have been justified,
Yeah,
but because of my faith, and just the way that I was brought up, and just having such resilience. You have to have a thick skin. You got to be resilient when you're doing what I do, in a world that is not really receptive to people that look like us doing what I do. It was tough, and reading some of that stuff back was like, wow, this is heavy, major stuff, and it was cathartic. It was nice to get it out and
yeah.
get it on the page, and be able to breathe again, and like, okay, Whew, okay, I can get some, some validation. I don't have to go around and tell people this stuff and them look at me like I'm crazy, like, nah, nothing like that would ever happen. So it was very cathartic. It was very validating in a sense.
Now, my nephew is reading your book. He's in the middle of it. So I told his mom, my sister, to go and get it. Really, so he's in the middle of it right now, and it feels like to him. I think he would say this, that he feels like you're teaching him something. I don't know what that means at a 15-year-old boy level there, but we'll dig into that like way later when he turns 30. But right now, right now, do you feel like you're teaching us something? And what do you enjoy about teaching? Because I feel like you are, man.
I hope so. And one of my friends actually told me when I was teaching high school, she said, Brendan, you're always teaching. And I took that as a serious compliment, because when I think a good teacher doesn't set out to, do a specific lesson. There are lessons in everything that you say and everything that you do, and you can find something in every single thing that you do. And I like to think in this book, people are learning a different perspective that they never knew existed. It's expanding their minds to a lot of things, like, whoa, I had no idea. Well, I might be taking this for granted. Let me try looking at this a little differently. I'm going to try a little empathy. I didn't realize people had to go through stuff like this. And for young people like your nephew, who is learning, looking just like me playing the violin, I've experienced what he could potentially go through, and well, or Ray has in the book actually,
Yeah.
and how he can handle those situations, and how he can, take a step forward and still remain. I'm sure he's a great kid. Stay a great kid. Don't let it taint you into being bitter. This is a good way to. How do you do that? Well, let me read and see what Ray does, and I can, take a little bit of that lesson into my own life. I hope.
It's incredible, man. Now you love mentoring. I've heard you talk about mentoring. So here's a question I'm going to spin on you a little bit here.
Okay. All right.
How did Grandma Nora mentor you, man?
Wow. My grandmother was the sweetest woman on the
Yeah.
face of the planet. And just as I was writing all of her dialogue, I literally felt like she was on my right shoulder, or just hanging over my right shoulder, and I could hear her voice. And when we were little kids, she never had anything cross to say. She was always so sweet. She loved all of her children. She loved all of her grandchildren. And you could talk to her, you could say anything to her, and she was just the sweetest woman on earth. And it
Yeah.
was, you absorb that, you take it in, and it's like, wow, okay, this is the stock that I come from. This is great. I love it.
Uh,
And you just absorb it all, and you take advantage of the gift that you've been given in a grandma like my grandma Nora.
Wow. What did being a mentor do for you personally when you look back?
My biggest mentor was my college violin teacher, Dr. Rochelle Vetter Huang. And in the story, Dr. Janice Stevens, she is modeled right after my violin teacher. She did for me what no one else could. She taught me how to play the violin. She taught me how to teach. Everything that I do to this day is based on what I've learned from her. And I thought that I hope that it would be a fitting tribute to her, just because, the way I talk to people, the way I interact with people, every single thing that I do is based on what she taught me. And, I've always, every time I went in for a lesson, I wanted to please her. I wanted to impress her. I wanted
Uh-huh.
to do my best all the time. She brought that out in me, a confidence I didn't know existed. And, I'm forever indebted to her. I am where I am right now because of her.
Isn't it amazing how mentors like bring the best out of us? It's
Oh yeah.
kind of one of those
Yeah,
things that, yeah, I think it's a God given gift.
I do
To
too.
be really honest with you, that people who have mentored me in the past, I go, man, they kind of just bring the
Yeah.
best.
And
The
I feel
best,
obligated to do the same thing.
yeah. It's interesting that when you've had a good mentor, you want to spread that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, if that makes sense. The best thing I've gotten out of your life, man, is this. I hope I don't get teary eyed about this, but because I don't tend to cry during interviews, but the Carnegie Hall moment, man. And so I literally have said in my journal when I knew I was going to be interviewing you, a few days ago, like, what is my Carnegie Hall moment that I'm going for in my own personal life? Man,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. So when you were on that stage, spiritually, something was going on, man. I know they couldn't talk about it on ABC Good Morning America, obviously. And Lindsay is a great interviewer, clearly. But what was going on at that moment, man?
It's very hard to say because I feel like I was on the outside looking in. I didn't realize exactly the magnitude of what was going on until I played my last couple of notes. Then I said to myself, I am really on the stage at Carnegie Hall playing this. I can't believe this is actually taking place. This,
Yeah,
never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that this would have happened. And I was in another place. I just was transported to another place. And the last couple of notes, I realized, whoa, I am actually here doing this. Like, what just happened? Did that really happen?
I'm
It,
here.
it was phenomenal. Yeah, it was phenomenal. It was like an out of body experience. It was amazing.
When I was watching it, I was like, wow, like I really need this, if that makes sense. I think we all should have a Carnegie Hall moment where we go, what is
Yeah,
our, like, what's our goal? If God did it, like, what would that look like, if that makes sense? So
yeah,
thank you for helping me envision that, man.
absolutely.
Although it led you to tears, I'm sorry during that. But man, I gotta tell you, it was one of those moments I was like, okay, I am not going to lose it here on this interview. But I was losing it literally when I saw it, man. If that makes sense. So thank you for that, man. Uh, next to last question, man. I feel like I've got to ask this one. When you look back, man, and you go through the writing experience, you go through everything that God has brought you through, man, why would you want to write a second book? Like, why would you want to mess this up? Man, this is, you struck gold. Do you want to do this again, Brendan? Like, why?
Well, a couple of reasons. A couple of reasons. One, I got a 2-book deal, so I had to.
Okay, got
So,
it. got it.
but even if I didn't have to, I probably would have written another one anyway. And I'm actually really excited about the second book. It's not like the Violin Conspiracy. It's only similar in the fact that it deals with music to an extent, but it's a great story with some great characters. And I've got books 3, 4, and 5 already in my head. I'm going to start on book 3 this summer. I'm excited about that, but I'm really excited to see what people think about my second book. Violin Conspiracy is its own thing, and I will never even try to duplicate that again because that's just my personal journey. So that's I can't duplicate that, so I'm not even going to try. So I'm going in a similar direction with a different theme. This one, I based the main character on my brother, who unfortunately passed away last year,
I'm
and
sorry.
just thank you. And everything that he would say or he would do, it's I really try to pay homage to my brother as the main character in this next book, and I'm really excited about it. It's a great story.
How do you find the time to write, Brendan? 'Cause, like, you're doing a lot of stuff, man. And I feel like I'm lazy listening to you. I'm going, man, I get paid to do this every day, and I'm like struggling. Man, where's the time come from, man?
Well, during 2020, of course, we had
We
nothing
all had
but
a lot of
time.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all I did was eat. And so I was like, yeah, I got to do something else because, yeah, these shirts are getting a little tight and it's not fun anymore. And
Whatever, dude. In all
yeah.
seriousness, like, I don't want to hear it. For those of us who are physically challenged, whatever.
No, I mean, okay, granted, yeah, okay, all right, fair enough, fair enough. But just 2020 was its own thing, and then I've been blessed to be able to teach. I taught as much as I could up to like teaching my private lessons.
Yeah.
I would teach in the afternoon, and I would write in the mornings, and then I would come back and write again in the afternoon after teaching, and for the second book. So this summer, what I think I'm going to do is just block off like 2 months, just 2 solid months, and I'm going to write, and I'm really really excited about my next story. So it's in here already. I just have to put it on the page. So it shouldn't be too terribly difficult. And if I can write uninterrupted for a couple of months, I should be able to knock it out, and then spend the rest of the time doing my normal stuff.
Pretty neat. Now, I would say this too. My nephew and I probably would both agree with this. He calls this book an action hero like oriented type book, and I see the action figures behind you. And I was telling Chadwick Boseman's brother Derek about your work, man. In fact, and so I was like, it's pretty action oriented, in my opinion, man, in
Mhm.
my nephew's opinion too. You love action heroes.
Oh
Did
yeah.
that come into play in the book process here? Because you could have made one little shift, man. And I'm like, we're an action movie here. This is pretty good. This is pretty, I mean, it was that close, man.
I am a comic book guy. I've got comics
Yeah,
everywhere. It just, I mean, that's what I've always loved. It's one of the first, things that I read comics all the time, and I have since I was like 14, 15. And I still collect them now in action figures. It when I was writing it, writing the Violin Conspiracy, I wrote it as if I was watching a movie, and I wanted to give that sense of cinema as I was writing. And even in the next book, it's the same thing. I was writing it like that there was a movie. I am action hero. I'm a junkie. I am just a comic book freak, an action figure freak. If it has to do with Marvel or DC Comics, I am in it
you're
100%
there.
all the way. Yeah, I love it. If you could see my office right now, you see a few posters back here, but I mean, all in front of me and everything, and just is all over the place. And it's comfortable. Made me happy when I was younger, and why can't I be happy older as well? So it makes me happy. Why not?
I'd agree with you, man. I think you live in one of the coolest cities. I love the DC area, man. It is we have spent 5 years there,
Oh
and
wow,
I would do it all over again if
cool.
I now Atlanta is home, but
Yeah.
I mean to be clear, and way better than DC, but I'm joking, sort of. Man, thank you for your time, man.
My
It
absolute pleasure.
has been fun. I cannot wait to get this story out. I'm telling you, the Carnegie Hall moment for me, man. I mean, I want to say, man, for that morning, like Jesus put you right there, man,
Yes, 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 you
on
did.
that screen for me that morning because it had me going, okay, what is my Carnegie Hall moment? What does that look like? And so, thank you for inspiring and teaching,
My
man. And
pleasure. Thank
when
you.
we get to book number 2, I got to come back, man.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely, absolutely.
for a second one because the book deal says I have to. No, I'm joking. It doesn't have to. Man. Congrats, man. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for your time. Have a great morning, and I hope the other 5 go better than this one.
So hey, that's going to be a tough bar. It's going to be a tough bar to meet because this was great. Tell your nephew to keep it up, and best of luck to him. And thank you so much.
I will. You got it, man. Thank you. Have a great morning.
All right. Bye bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye, man.